All right, everyone. Welcome to another XAFers community stand-up. Today we're going to be talking about XAF and SQL. As we know, there is no magic recipe for a scalable performance line of business app. You have to consider all the parts. You have to consider the application part. You have to consider the database side, the network side, and everything. Everything that is involved on performing app. So we always meet once a month. This month we're meeting twice because last month we made it. We have been doing this for a couple of years, already a few years. So we missed it last month. We were like sad about it. So we decided let's double down this month. We, as always, encourage everyone to join our Facebook group. We are already 3,500 members, so really excited about that. Follow XAF on their Twitter channel. They are posting the new docs, the new features, everything that is coming in the DevExpress world. And this is a really good article about doing a optimal query on Entity Framework. We know that for all us that we love XPO, we have a lot of choices with XPO, with explicit loading, with preface, with XPView, with XPQuery, and so on. I also, before we started, wanted to mention we have this comment in our in our group in our Facebook group about how many businesses in the US use XAF, and I like how the community was all responsive and everyone was like, yeah, a lot of people are using XAF, not only in the US but all around the world. A lot of XAFers in Canada, a lot of XAFers in the US, a lot of XAFers, if you see here in Iran. One of the comments was actually surprising in Iran, in New York, and I want to mention a lot of our students, a lot of our clients are US based. Actually, when we were building this map, that I think that is a good representation of where XAFers are, like basically if you see, that's all around the world, and that's only the people that have interacted with us. So I'm pretty sure there are a few more out there. But when we were doing this map, I wanted to put pins on it. So just to like say, okay, we have more XAFers in Canada than in Brazil. We have, and like the feedback that I got was like, it didn't look as good with all the pins around the world. But I want to mention the most amount of pins was in this area here between Canada and the United States. So definitely there are a lot of US-based XAFers, and I'm glad to see that are all over the world. Australia, Japan, there is a lot of them, Spain, Germany, and so forth. Just like that, mentioning we are still going through the XAF training tour. Jorge will be leaving soon for LA and then Egypt. So if any of you guys want to participate, he's more than welcome to arrange a meeting and go and some sessions, some discussions about XAF, or even a beer, anything that we can like get together and talk about XAF and so on. Having said that, as always, I see Dave is here as well. Glad to have you here, Dave. We missed you last meetup. So if you guys want to, like as always, in case that there is some new XAFer starting today, introduce themselves, and then we get to the topic of the day, that is XAF and SQL.
Okay, I guess I will start. Well, my name is Jorge. I work for Azure and Bit Frameworks, and we do XAF 24/7 basically, and XPO mostly. And this is a really exciting topic that we have today because you need to understand that not everything should be put on the weight of the application framework. So I'm happy to be here and to share these ideas. Dave?
There we go. Couldn't find the mute button. Yeah, Dave from Llama Chat Technology. We are also a kind of 24/7 XAF shop. So very interested in today's discussion. We've been doing some interesting SQL stuff recently as well, particularly around security. So excited to see what happens today.
Nice. All right. So I'm going to do a brief. I like history of things a lot when I can talk to someone who has been in the beginning of a product and always try to like see how everything started, how everything going. I actually messaged Oliver Stone that it was one of the, he had a really nice podcast about SAF when it was on CTP. I have asked project managers of Microsoft how a product started, so I have a really good, nice conversation with Bob Gar. He has been in Microsoft for a long time, so he told me about Azure SQL, and actually they were kind enough to help me with some slides about the Azure SQL, because let's be honest, SAF handles through XPO and TT Framework a lot of databases. But if you talk to me, you will always be discussing Azure SQL like 9 out of 10 times. Hoche will be discussing Postgres, Hoche will be discussing other solutions, but I like Azure. I think that it brings a lot of good features, a lot of good performance, easy to get things implemented. If you have done the app service and the SQL, you can increase memory, increase cores with a slide. Before we have to do a lot of like crazy things to do scaling. So I'm gonna do a couple of slides and just go from there. Let's minimize this and make here. Great. At any time, feel free to put any question on the chat, or Hoche, let me know if we have something, but let me put this over here. So Azure SQL. So basically Azure, the history about SQL databases on Azure, we have a couple of choices. Of course, we have the choice of doing SQL Server on a VM in a managed instance that it is not exactly as the VM, because you don't have the OS control, but you do have a lot of configurations that you have on your actually SQL Server deployment. And Azure SQL database, that's the serverless approach. That's the approach where you only want to manage your database and go from there. And if you think about the most important part, like the first thing that you do when you are going through the SQL part is just installation. So basically right here, because we are not installing anything per se, we think about deployment. Then the other part is security. Are we doing a virtual network? Are we doing private links? What are we encrypting? So all those are things that is consideration. And then performance and availability, like how fast are our processing, how storage do I have, how can I scale, how like there is actually a hyper scale tier. So a lot of good features that comes with moving to the cloud. So brief history, like if you think about in 2008, when I think that Ray Ciochi, when in that time that Steve Ballmer was the CEO of Microsoft, it was called Windows Azure, right? In that time, like everything was tied to Windows. But if you see, even when they were like thinking about, okay, how can we make services out of compute, out of databases, SQL service was in the middle of the platform, of the idea. And then they starting to abstract all the configuration, abstract all the hardware, abstract everything, so we can only go from the on-premise and go all the way from infrastructure as a service to platform as a service to actually a software as a service. So if you like quickly, let's move the timeline to the end. If we see here, in 2006, the Azure team that it was called in that time Red Dog, and the Cloud DB, that was the SQL team, they were talking about how we're gonna do things for the cloud. And then in 2008 was when they announced Windows Azure with the SQL data service announced. And in 2010, then they call it SQL Azure. And Bob was always saying that they actually still, a lot of people call it SQL Azure over there. Now, in 2012, they started to say, okay, right here, we're going to create a set of products that is going to be Azure and short name. And then they start moving everything to the Azure kind of first name approach, Azure SQL database. And in 2013, the virtual machine still were not stateful. So they could not actually deploy an SQL server in virtual machines. So from there, they were actually making the virtual machine stateful, and that's when you started to be able to do a lot of things like, okay, let's migrate all our on-premise to the virtual machine on Azure. That comes with a lot of security out of the box, that come with backups, that come with updates, and so on. 2014, they decided, okay, we should not call this anymore Windows Azure because we want this cloud to be for Linux, to be for any other operating system. So Microsoft Azure. And in the 2015, that V12, that was a huge point for Azure SQL database when they increased performance by a lot. There was all these generations that you can see on the service tiers. And then, of course, Elastic Pool, database managed instance, and then what we're gonna see more, like you see anymore, hyperscale, serverless, instance pool, and at the end, it all end up being the umbrella of Azure SQL. So from there, the Azure ecosystem, as we know already, is all the marketplace that one of the services is the Azure SQL, but you can also access them through the APIs, CLIs, the Azure Resource Manager that, funny enough, Jorge, we were actually creating a couple of weeks ago, the Azure deployment manager, how we call it, that basically is what we can create the databases and create the app services and everything in code. And they changed the complete SDK, and now you have to create an ARM client. And that's basically what the ARM means, Azure Resource Manager. And all the things that you have with that involved. Monitor what the regions, what the data sensor, what your SLA, your compliance, your trust, and so on. So basically, as you see here, we're moving from infrastructure as a service to platform as a service. So we're going from the SQL server on an Azure virtual machine to, if you need a little bit more control without having to have OS level access, you do the managed instance that comes with like database mail, service broker, and native B network support to Azure SQL database. That basically is pre-provisioned and serverless, and you can do basically everything. Actually, that's the only one who has a hyperscale with unlimited storage. So they say like 100 terabytes, but it's as much as you can. That's for a really big service. So right here is basically what you need. If you need OS control, if you need to do something in the operating system, if you have a third-party tool that actually does something like schedule something, you need to go to the virtual machine. Or not only that, if you use, for example, SQL Server 2008 or SQL, all the old SQL Server that they don't have security update, if you put it in Azure, they will actually allow you to do extended security update. So that's the idea. We understand a lot of big clients, they go through this one because they are used to a certain way. They keep their infrastructure as close as possible, and they start migrating little by little. But in our case, I think that we like more the most serverless approach. The most I only want to manage my database, and actually between managed instance and the serverless approach, there is also a huge amount of budget involved. So the good thing is that you have a lot of deployment choices already integrated. So they come with pre-installed servers on Windows. So we all know this. So that virtual machine, they are ready with an image ready for you to put everything. You can put your own license. You can actually bring all your existing system directly, and you can actually integrate it with virtual networks and with your on-premise services, Defenders, and so on. So good thing about that is like it gives you the way to have your business continuity, so you can migrate and keep everything running smoothly if you like do it right. High availability, automated backups. You're getting all of those just to move into the cloud. Long-term backup retention, geo-replication, scale, security, versionless. It's a good thing to mention versionless because when we are in the SQL on-premise world, we are always thinking, oh, what version of SQL server am I using? If I did a backup in one, it doesn't run in the other one, so I have to adjust my settings, so the Azure SQL is versionless, so you don't have a version that you need to keep track. They update it for you, but you have like all the compatibilities that you need with everything, all your applications. Monitoring, intelligence, and we talk about and so on. So managed instance is kind of like a good second steps because you still have access to a lot of the things that the SQL server have, like SQL agents, service broker, mail, but you have access to all of those, but you have it on the cloud. So you are able to have, like, again, some other like fully managed fail groups. You are able to do you can migrate. They have a really nice migration from on-premise to managed instance because basically it's migrating almost the same configuration from your on-premise to cloud. It does come with an extra cost, but you can reuse a lot of things. For example, the Azure SQL, they deploy their own instance, logical instance, how they call it. So that means that you cannot do this cross-query database. So that's one thing that you need to keep in account. So there are things like external tables on their execute remote. There are workarounds around it, but it's not in managed instance. You are still having the same environment that you have on your on-premise. All right, SQL database. This is the one that we use most of the time in all our projects. And basically, if you see here is the highest availability SLA in the whole industry. That's not only for Microsoft, 99.9995. So under the hood, they have availability group deployed for you without you even knowing. And they are really good on having everything back as soon as possible. They you can also do like single database or elastic pool, because one thing that you need to think about that, okay, if I have 7, 8 databases, I want to match that the highest performance for each one of them. I don't want to be paying my cost to them because I don't use it all the time at the latest intensity. So you put all of them in elastic pool with all the resources that you need, good to go. Hyperscale, 100 terabytes and more. Serverless compute, fully managed, private link support if you need security, high availability. So it's a really, really good choice, and it's cost effective. So if you think about here in managed instance, you have the concept of instance pool. So the first time that you deploy, you take a little more time, but then you can actually pre-provision, and every time that you do another instance, it will be faster. And in SQL database is basically elastic pool, but it's fully managed for you. So this is really nice. So right here, I just want to mention about price. So we have the service type of general purpose and business critical. So for general purpose, it's basically like the one that we use most of the time. Business critical, if you are a huge company and you need to make sure that your system is low latency, fast recovery, and you will have it right there. There's nothing to happen. But it comes definitely with a cost associated. If you think here in general purpose, your storage is remote, but in your business critical is local storage. Your I/O per seconds, it will be, of course, slower. In general purpose of being characteristic will be more, and of course money. But the good thing is, like, if you see in the bottom, you have, like in business critical, you have a primary, 2 secondary, and a replication. So you are really safe there, that you're good to go. And the Hoche always say, I never understand what's all these DTU things like the Azure. And I have to say, like, most of the time I don't either. But basically, it's something that they, I think, like make up like database transaction unit. And depending of if you choose this amount of database transaction unit, you will have a prepackaged, a configure this amount of processing, this amount of compute. So you know that if you pay a little bit more, you will be good to go. But there is also the big core model that allows you to do, okay, I want this amount of compute, this amount of storage, so you can be actually, you can have, for example, reserve capacity and save on money, because you say, I want this for 3 years, and this is a good model, especially also for app services. That I say, okay, I want my app service in Premium 3 for the next 3 years, and they give you like a huge, I don't know, 30% discount. So you have those two models, of course. That's for serverless. For a single database, if you do managed instance, it's only the big core model. So let's move this one faster. We already talked about this too. Hyperscale is basically, as they say, you have local and remote storage, and you have basically unlimited storage, everything you need there for your application. So this is what we use. If you see the Azure SQL database serverless is perfect for line of business app. And the good thing about that is that it allows you to pause your database, your compute, and only pay for storage. So if you're not using your database, scale down almost to 0, so that way you can save your costs, especially if you are only working 8 to 5, you don't have to pay for nights. If you're working only on the weekdays, you don't have to pay for weekend. So this allows you to pay with a minimum and max big cores for when you are using or not, or if you completed build. So let me see, of course, we know this, we can interact with Azure SQL through the portal, through T-SQL, through REST API, to PowerShell, Azure CLI, SQL CMD, TCP. So you have a lot of choice depending on what you need to use that one. And as they like to say, Azure SQL has evolved into the world's database. Like, I think that they have a huge percentage. The app service and Azure SQL are the most used service on the Azure cloud, following by blob storage. Right. The first thing, of course, is deploy and configure. That's kind of like the approach. And actually, I wanted to show something first. I have a small video here that I wanted to. So this is a small video that shows the serverless approach in action. And the good thing is, like, we need to show it in video because it takes time to prove this out. Like, again, if you have here, we have a general purpose Gen 5 with 2 cores, as you can see on the video. And with that one, we run a performance test. And when you run the performance test, you have 8 users with 25 concurrency. And when the performance test is run, it takes like 14 minutes to run all of that. So, of course, you can go change your compute, and you see the CPU is 100%, but you can go set your compute, put it 8 cores, apply, and if you run it again, 5 minutes. So only by upgrading your cores, there is a huge amount of performance. Now, if you go back to serverless now, you see serverless with the same cores, 8 cores. So you're going to say maximum 8, and I'm going to do a minimum of 2. I don't want to go lower 2. And there is an auto pass that will come back to it. So if you see now, it takes 3 minutes something because it's the amount of like cores. But now you see that there is a minimum cores. So you are only getting bill in this side for when you are using the 2 cores, and when you're actually doing a lot of operations, then you get bigger. So if you pause it, you say, okay, I want to pause it after 1 hour of not being used, and you run the same thing, you can see that it does the same, but when it's not being used, it goes back to 0. So that's huge in amount of like I have a lot of databases in this mode that I only use for tests here and there, and the cost really goes down. So serverless is a huge risk. So continue, let's go faster. Like, basically, you are going to migrate your application to Azure. You have a way to assess before you migrate to see what are like the things that you need to take in account. Then you do the migration, your data sync, your migrate schema objects, and then you after migration, you optimize and make sure that you improve your cost, improve your performance, and so on. So this part is just basically what are your decisions, or how are you going to deploy through the portal, through scripts? Are you going to, what region are you going to choose? What is your purchasing model, service type, hardware? What is going to be your core? And with that things in place, what is your memory, maximum size? Depending of the thing that you want, then you're going to select what will be your selected target, your service type, and so on. And right here, you will need to take into account all of those things, from the network connectivity to the security to the additional settings to all the tags for you. So right here, a little bit more about if you're going the route of managed instance, if you go the route to a database, or if you're going to do hyperscale. And one thing that is really nice here is this resource governance, that you can actually limit what they can or cannot do in your application, in your database. After that, you are able to verify that everything is working as it should. You can verify your resource governance and basically configure. After that, you start doing nice things to make sure that you get the most of the migration to the Azure SQL part. So, of course, your SLO, your service level objective, is what is going to determine your maximum possible size, your storage, and so on. Same thing with the Azure SQL database. That's everything depends, and you can load your data with any of the methods that we know. Of course, like, we can also just import a backup, as we see here, but if you have huge amount of data, you can use something like Azure Data Factory, Spark connectors, and so on. And it's just about planning, migrating, deploying, connecting, configuring, and loading the data. So security, brief security, and we see this a lot now with the European customers, and Australia is really big. You cannot do anything without having a virtual network in place, without having a private link, without making sure that you have all your authentication in place with the Active Directory. So you need to check all your firewall rules, all your private link, your minimum TLS. There's actually a huge report that Azure provide to make sure that you are covering everything. Same thing with identity and access, how you're authenticated through ID, to SQL authentication, to Windows managed identity, roles permission, protection. There is data at rest, data in use, encryption in flight, dynamic data masking. So there is a lot of things, and of course, all the audit, and this is what gives you a huge report regarding that. Then we have the network security. This is just a really small picture where you see the private networks in place and how they communicate with your on-premise service through the VPN. And basically how they recommend to follow this. So if it's possible, use private link to be the most secure that you can. If it's not, configure your firewall rules, your virtual network, and so on. Now, of course, if you, and we see this in the portal in just a little bit, if you go there, you have the choices to actually at a server level add the IPs that are allowed, at the private link, at the virtual network, and so on. Same thing with access role bases. I think that everything that goes to the Azure portal know how those work, and basically is what are your roles, what are you allowed, what are the operations that you need to accomplish. And of course, you have to create your server admin that create other admins, they create the users, and then start using just like in your SQL. Encryption, really big in encryption. We need to like even column level encryption. So we need to go to the nitty gritty of everything that you are here. And especially for government solutions, they cannot have basically almost nothing that is sensitive, like social security, credit card, all of those have to be completely encrypted. So 4 things that you need to make sure. Force connection or encryption takes advantage of dynamic data masking and always encrypted. Good thing is like it comes encrypted by default. So that's the good thing. You only by you creating your Azure SQL database, you get most of those things in place. Then you can monitor. And the good thing is like you have Defender that gives you a lot of like accessibility. Okay, take a look at this. This should not be doing. It gives you a good graph and so on. All right. Let me just come back to this. Okay, so basically be aware of everything that Azure brings to the table, authentication method that your organization needs, configure your network, and data encryption, and use Defender to monitor, manage, and address. We'll see it in the portal. For performance, I think that will be briefly talked, but I think one of the things that I like the most about Azure SQL is the automated performance tuning. They actually have a really good service that checks your queries, checks your database uses, and gives you really nice recommendation about indices, about partitions, about a lot of really nice things. And partition is something that we have been using lately. And it's amazing. We have a SAF application with a dashboard that it was more than 500,000 records, and it was taking almost 10 minutes to actually bring all the data and so on, and now it's taking like 3 seconds. We partitioned it, we created indices, we did a lot of review the SQL execution plan, but like 99% of the work was done on the database side, and it's working. That is just a beauty. All right. As you see here, all index types are supported, in memory, all TP, and all the capacities that you have for the performance of our hardware and more. Partitions, big things, we were talking about that, supported for both Azure SQL database and managed instance. And you can even place of your file groups where you have control only on the managed instance on how you wanna handle the file groups and the size of it and so on. All right. Just basically right here, 10 dB, they are always kept on local with SSD drive. So basically that's just telling you all the things that they are doing on the back end, so they can guarantee the performance of your application. As of course, maintenance indices to reveal and automatic stats. And with that one, I think that, let me see, I can actually show another small video. Jose, I want to mention that this part about indices, is something that actually have come across us like few times. Clients comes. Do you wanna expand on that, Jose?
Yeah. Basically, the idea here was that we have some customers that are kind of big organizations, and they do have a dedicated DBA. I mean, someone who is handling the servers and the databases and so on. So in a few cases, they have come to us to say like, okay, you have all these indexes in all these tables, but you never use them in the statistics. You have like zero usage. So I heard that like individually kind of often, and then someone else mentioned that yesterday also. So I had this idea, okay, like why are we not using those tables? And the idea basically is that maybe those tables are never the entry point for your queries. Maybe the indexes are in invoice detail and you start your query from invoice header. So you never hit those indexes, and you're adding a little bit of overhead by creating those indexes. So the idea was, okay, how do we get the statistics of the indexes to see which ones we are using, and then how we disable them, because we don't want to delete them for one reason. XPO will look for them again and create them again if it don't find it. So the idea is to have them there but disabled. So you're not using CPU or resources to index that you're not going to use. So it becomes more optimal, and still is like kind of an easy trick because they're still there. So XPO will find them. So that was like a good idea. I don't know if you want to show the.
Yeah, so basically right here, if you see, we have this help index with a single table, for example, and it will actually list all the index for the table. You can update the statistics of a table, or you can update the statistic of the whole app, and basically do a full scan and make sure. The good thing about doing these things, and I will just front, is that you can start seeing, okay, what are the indices that this table has, and then there is another command that basically will tell you, if we keep going, it will tell you, okay, how many reads does that index had, so we know exactly how much is being used. And then the good thing is that we can actually see a lot of more information, and if you see here, we can, depending of that data, we can create this command that actually disable. Okay, let's see all the indices that are not being used, and we can just disable it directly. I think that I actually, okay, right here is where we see that they are disabled, but it might be this is the one that I wanted. No, this is the one that we see if it's disabled or not, but I want this one. This one here, we can see here the index name, and we can see the last time that it was sick, the last time that was updated. And if you see here, we can see how many times it has been read, the number of six. And if you see, actually this index here on city is one of the one most used. So you can actually have metrics about everything that is being used, and take that metric to actually do some decisions about it. So there is a lot of things that you can have on the database side that will improve greatly your application, because most of the people think that, okay, we have SAF that does a lot for you, I have to do nothing in the other side. No, if you want your database, your application to be performance, you have to be and getting into all of these scenarios.
Here, let me mention just something extra, is that this problem you will have then even without an ORM. Is mostly about the design that you will do for your database. So you can have like application created like using Ado.net, and you will still have the problem that if you do extra indexes, they will compute and spend CPU time anyway. So this is not something that is inherited like from XPO or stuff. It's something that all applications have. Like the only thing that is that you rarely take the time to go to this level. You always think, is my code, I can make it faster. And then if not, it's my tooling. You say, okay, it's not my fault, it's XPO fault, it's SAF fault. But no, you always have to take care of these situations, even in like manually created applications. So it's kind of the same thing.
Exactly. And if you see, even the database gives you the chance to do some reporting at it, and it makes it in a more readable way with some like coloring in the headers and so on. But if you see, there is the same information, then you can see how many times it was sick, what was the last time that it was updated. So there is a lot of things out of the box that you can actually see how fragmented it was and so on. So just wanted to mention that because it's something that it has come, and that actually the auto tuning in Azure SQL give us a lot of things for implementing that basically. So monitoring, of course, you have Azure Monitor that is not only for Azure SQL, it's for basically the whole Azure ecosystem. So this is really nice, and you have a lot of other things to review. Remember, Azure in SQL is you have like two choices: it's just running or waiting. You have the operations that are running and are executing CPU and compilation, and you have everything that is waiting like IO and use locking and memory and so on. Depending of that will be your performance, and you have a lot of tools at your at your disposal to actually tweak and perform that. But I like the idea of accelerating and tuning the performance, and for that, the Azure portal makes it really easy for you, especially with tuning your indices, batching store procedures, and so on. So they actually have some intelligence performance processing, and I think that with the AI that we have nowadays, this is going to be even more hands-on. You see, they have the automatic tuning and they have the automatic correction plan. And what I like about that is that they do the whole processing, and but I like that they check, okay, we are trying this plan, but if that plan is not working, they revert back to the previously effective plan right away. So this automatic tuning with Azure SQL is just nice. It does some machine learning and let you know what you should implement, and it's up to you to accept it or not. But I do believe that it does make a huge difference in how your application behaves. So as we talk about performance, scalability, they scale up and down with the need to migrate, and they have a lot of possibilities for you to increase. Right here, I'm gonna move even faster because availability is just to make sure that you have everything you need. For that one, they have your backups that they do automatic, and that's one thing that I like. You don't have to do nothing, but they can even retain it until 10 years if you decide, if you pay for that. But they actually does log backups every 5 to 10 minutes. They retain it, and they allow you to do a restore right away. This is just for general purpose high availability, but we also have business critical high availability that, of course, it will have more redundancy. We have a few more replicas. It will have 3 secondaries besides the primary. So your data will be safe. It will be, that's how they can stay on that big SLO. If you see this SLA is 99.95, 99.99, everything is just, you are secure just by moving there. So what else do I need to know about my SQL in the Azure? Of course, like if you need your SQL agent, that would be only for managed instance. If you need Elastic jobs, that will be allowed in the Azure SQL database. External tables are allowed, and we have a video on our channel about using external tables, because as we were mentioned, the Azure SQL, they are deployed in a logical server, so they are not the same instance. So when you are trying, even if you have them in the same Elastic pool and so on, when you're trying to cross-query them, that wouldn't work. So it's up to you to create some external table, to do something, some workaround around. They are definitely available in the managed instance, but the cost is something that you need to consider. If it's just for that one, you need to like update your type. Link server is also available in managed instance, and from there you can do great things, connect to Postgres, connect to something else. Database and service broker, I will talk about that, managed instance as well. And right now, basically almost everything is integrated with machine learning service, AI services, full text service with Azure service. And now with AI, you're gonna get a lot of more great things. So what can we build on top of Azure SQL? Basically almost everything: IoT, analytic visualization, Power BI. We can do automation. We can do alerts when something happens. We can do web, mobile. So I know that there is a lot of non-SQL flow right now, but we still do most of our development in SQL relational database. And if you're working with me, most probably it will be on Azure SQL. So really, really good service that Microsoft provides. So that's basically it on the Azure part. So what do you think, Josh? All right. So while Jose gets ready, let's come back to here and let's talk about then few things. So we have this XAF and SQL playlist, and basically we have a couple of things that I wanted to just quickly mention. Running a long task on XAF. So right here we have a video where we actually send that to the database and let them run the job over there. And when we finish, we get all the results back. So that's a really neat thing that inside your app, you take that processing out of your app. Calculated properties versus SQL Server computer field. Nice, you can do the processing on your application, you can do the processing on the server. And I'm gonna leave partitioning and external table for the discussion with Hoche. You there, Hoche? I'm not sure. I'm not seeing the.
But I cannot hear you well. It's going off.
Partitioning. I was talking about like the discussion about partitioning because we have the video, but it's in Spanish. But I do want to mention the partitioning part of everything that we can achieve using partitions. You want to take it? And
yes. But the only thing is that I don't have the database or the slides to show it. Hold on. Send me the link so I can get them from the video maybe.
No, that's fine. I can even actually move over here.
Okay.
So basically,
the idea here is this one is a really nice one. So we have this customer with a huge database, but the database is not unevenly, it's not, I mean, the tables, they don't grow in an even way. You have some tables that are really, really small and some of them that are huge, right? So the idea here was, okay, what do we do with those tables that are just too big to process? And well, there is a concept called partitioning that what you do is you split your tables in kind of a different mini tables because each table will have like a specific file, a specific indexes, and so on and so forth. So basically it's a partitioning. Whatever you will split in any amount of records, like 1,000 records, for example, or 1 million records, you decide like a function to do the splitting. It's like, basically it's like a binary operator. If you do like a where type condition, you decide, okay, if you meet this condition, you will go to this partition. If you go to this condition, you will go to another partition. So it's kind of up to you to decide how the function will split the records. But if you do a good one, what will happen is that instead of looking for 1 million records one time, maybe your queries will go to just a segment of the table. If you split it by year, for example, or if you split it by month, usually you just do stuff like in 1 year, like at a time. So why to have a file that is, I don't know, 5 gigabytes, 10 gigabytes long? So that's basically the idea of partitioning. I don't know if anyone have any doubt about it. Oh, the admin is thanking the speakers. Javier?
yeah, I'm here, Jose. Just give me 2 minutes. I have a visitor that is getting ready to allow me to continue.
Okay, so, well, like if anyone wants to share any experience that you have regarding database experience using XAF or XPO, you can participate on this moment. Or if you have any question, also you can put them on the chat, and and we will try to solve it. I mean, or maybe share the experiences that we have. And if not, I will talk a little bit about what is our experience with this, or well, Javier is back. So
Yeah. Basically, what I wanted to also then is go back to this other part. Is sometimes we have a system that we need to synchronize from several databases to just one, or keep two databases in sync, and those systems can become really critical and really complex. Hoche has done entity framework, sync framework, XPO sync framework. We know how that works from the application level, but there is also a lot that you can do on the database level. And if you see right here, we basically just talk about everything that we need to make sure about data consistent. Conflict resolution is a big one. Optimization of the performance, security and compliance, error handling, scalability. But what we like is what we think that is a must-have law. So we have, for example, the connection verification. Basically, we create a stored procedure to ping the remote server and make sure that we have connection to actually start any synchronization. Then log. So log every event, every data migration, every data error. So we can actually, if something doesn't go right, we can go and check what you have to be there. Then we can basically create a storage for all the details of each remote SQL server. That way we can make dynamic. So if we need to add a new server, a new database, a new table to the synchronization, we just basically add it to that remote configuration. And of course, from there is like what are migrating, what are tables, what columns, what are the fields, what unique key. We need to make sure for duplicates of all those values. Then we have to check the control. Are we in a day that they have a specific workload where we cannot migrate this synchronized state? So we need to have some state control to decide when and how are we synchronization. And of course, then is all the queries for the migration procedure. We basically are going to store what are the active configuration that we need to take in account when we're synchronizing, and then avoiding the duplication of those unique key and inserting the data in the server and the synchronization indicator. And then it's just about putting that in an SQL Server agent task and let it run. So it seems like a lot of steps, but after you have it right, I think that is a really dynamic way to make sure that your data is synchronized in a really stable way. All right, that was it on the SQL part. Do you have anything you want to show, Hoche?
not yet complete. I have a lot of stuff that are like work in progress. But I just want to talk about them, like the idea of smart components. Remember that we were playing with them.
Yeah.
So the idea is that to have components in your UI that they have already embedded AI. So for example, a text box can autocomplete, lookup can do semantic search or like a full text search. So there's a new project from Microsoft. It's like 5 days old. So it's really young project that there are some set of Blazor components for that can use AI. Actually, I have one of the components working. Let me see if it decides to work right now. Because
It's good to mention. It's good to mention that these smart components, AI Blazor smart components that we're trying to integrate to XAF, they were released 4 days ago.
Yeah,
so
I
it's something
think
that
it's 5
is
days ago.
it's
I
something
even put
really new.
already
So
yesterday, Javier, I posted an issue, and it's like the 6th or 7th issue that they have. It's like this. The list is really small because they are really new. So I have one working. Not as I would like it to work, but it's working. So
can you share, Hochi?
yeah, I'm just loading the solution. So let's see. Just let me do something. Because the other computer is using a VPN, so I want to disconnect it because it's getting slow. Okay, so let's share. So here the idea is that if you can see, there is some components called the Smart Components ASP.NET Core. These are Microsoft ones. So the idea is that, well, you can create your own. In this case, I was thinking to create our own property editors using the Smart Components for Microsoft. So there is like just one editor right now. And the editor is a smart text area. So in here, I mean, this requires an OpenAI API or Azure OpenAI API. So the smart text area will suggest you something to fill in that area. If you're like writing like a small letter, like it will suggest you the next phrase to go. And in role, you can do something like, okay, you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're like whatever profession that you want to set, like kind of a role, exactly like how it should behave on how it should help you. And also you can, all of these controls have properties to do more complex pre-prompting like scenarios. It's like, for example, you tell them, okay, this is your role, but also you should behave like this and that, and so on and so forth. You can explain how we should behave. So this one was running. Let's see if it still is working, because these components are so new that everything explode. But I make it work yesterday for a little bit of time. And let's see if the autocomplete with ChatGPT is working. I was thinking to actually do all of these components in the SAF way, like as a property editors, because a lot of things that Microsoft is proposing, they cannot be integrated with SAF. They have some problems in how they put the idea together. So, but I was thinking like, okay, we can, as SAF community, we can take this idea and make it our own, like make it our smart detail view, like a smart text box, and so on and so forth. So, which I think is not kind of difficult to implement. But who have the time, right? Who have the time? Okay, let's see. So here we have a domain object one. And this is the smart component from Microsoft. As you can see, it looks really ugly because I have not put any CSS, and I cannot make it wider for some reason. But well, let's give it a try. So I'm from El Salvador, which is a country in Central America. No, it's not doing the autocomplete right now. It depends on what you're writing. It will show you something there, but let's do something. Smart components.
Yeah, sure. Jose, show the examples that are in the repo. They're really nice.
Yeah, because I in the example, they have a specific text that they use. So,
But talk about this one. This one is also nice. Like you have a form.
okay, so this one is also nice. It's like, this is the smart paste. The idea here is that you can get something on the clipboard, and whatever it is, it can be text without format. You copy it, and then you put the smart paste, and the AI will figure out which form parts to fill with the text. So it will make sense out of the addresses, names, phone numbers, and so on, and it will put them in the right position, or almost in the right position. So you can do this kind of the same, like you set the tone and giving some instructions on how to parse the data. This was the one that we were like trying to do. It depends on what you're typing, what it will write back. And you will see that at one moment it stops and shows the autocomplete. Let's give it a try. Thanks for your inquiry. Yeah, right now it's not auto-completing. Just let me check if there's any error on the console. Yeah, sometimes this happen. I don't know. I think they have problems getting the API because at one moment, without changing the code, this will work or not. So I guess the smart components are kind of too new. So this is kind of the idea. In general, we have something in the chat. Okay. And also the smart combo box, this one is good one. The idea here is that you do some type of semantic search with embeddings. We've been talking about embeddings for the last like 3 or 4 meetups and how you use them for search, for like vector search and so on. So now the component behave like that. You can create embedding locally. This one is really complex, and I put a ticket for this one because this actually downloads some AI models locally to your computer, and they do the processing on your computer. So like the really small models to do embeddings. And this one is the one who is failing for me. The one because you need to download in the background like Onyx runtime and so on. So for that one, I have my issue. I'm like the 7. This one. Well, I have an answer from Steve Sanderson, so that's kind of good. Let's see what he reply. But anyway, so this is a kind of a good idea of all the smart components, but some of them will not be able to be ported to SAF, but we are working on the idea of injecting AI in the editors anyway. So that's for my side, Javier. It's a shame that the smart components are not behaving good right now because when it works, it's really nice.
It happens. Either way, okay, basically we want to talk a little bit about the SQL side of the application. That definitely needs some love, it needs some maintenance, it needs to check the SQL execution plan, you need to send the index fragmentation. If you have a huge amount of data, check partition. If you're using Azure SQL, you are having a lot of things out of the box. Actually, in the presentation, let me share my screen quickly. I wanted to run by this, but I didn't. So we can actually go to one of this is the server. So right here, you can actually set your firewall and basically what if you're going to allow a public network access, if you're going to allow a virtual network, if you're going to allow your IP, and then there is a lot of things that you can achieve. So if you go to one of the databases, just briefly, let's glance over it. I should have done this in the middle of the presentation, so everything was together, but we can come back to it. So if you see here, right here, you will see what is your pricing tier, what if you're in Elastic Pool, what will be. If you go to the activity log, you will see what has happened right here. We can see what has happened, like who initiated the event, what are the events related to that database. You can also add tags if you want to do something else. You have to diagnose common problem, and there is a lot of troubleshooting that they provide to us right there. A query editor, if you want to do something like query directly from the portal. You can also use any of the SQL Management Studio. You can use Navicat. You can use Azure Data Studio. Right here, you can select what will be your computer storage in this case, because we are part of Elastic Pool. We are right here, but if not, you will be able to select here what will be your compute. Right here, logs. If you want to logs, okay, I want this to only be for read only, so you can add this type of log for security reasons. Replicas into other databases, you can have starting to add Azure AI Sales, Power BI, there is a really nice integration here. Layer, I want to mention about this, Jose, we didn't talk about Azure SQL layer in depth intersection, about how can actually you have a cryptographic signature of your data. That way you can actually verify that your data hasn't been modified, and this for audit purpose is a really beautiful way to actually have immutable data transactions in your database. We talk about dynamic data masking, Defender, if you want to check extra capabilities of the security aspect. Encryption, right here we need to enable it. We go back. We have encryption. By default, it's always going to be on, so that's a nice thing that it comes out of the box. Then we have automatic tuning, and it will tell you, okay, what are the ways that you need to go about that. Overview, performance, alerts, if you want to do some type of alert when something happened, logs. So a huge amount of things that if you start playing with it, you will get a lot of performance, a lot of availability, a lot of security, and a lot of your Azure SQL database. And to finish that part, I always recommend everyone to go through this workshop, Azure SQL Fundamental. They actually allow you to deploy a free instance. So if you don't have an Azure account, they actually do some free instance for you, so you can play and work through the whole workshop. But right here, if you finish this one, you will be in a really, really good place to deploy, manage, and use your Azure SQL databases. Well, that will be all on my side, Jose. I don't know if there is any questions. And all right, I know that was. Dave had to go, but he was mentioning that YAML logger is actually using millions of records on SQL with deep search capability powered by Azure SQL. So he's also on board on the Azure SQL train. So that will be all for this meetup, guys. See you next month. We're going to be talking about migration nightmares. We have come through a lot of those, so we have a few things to say, but we also love to hear what your migration nightmare has been in the SAF world, from SAF Window and SAF Web Form to Blazor, and not only to Blazor, to also just to the new Net framework. If you're wearing SAF Win Forms and you move to SAF Window, but in Net 6, Net 7, Net 8, just let us know how that went. And that's it. All right. Thank you for coming as always, Jose.
Okay, see you guys next time.